Revealed, the incredible blind date that transformed one woman's life and captured a CEO's heart. Sarah gazed at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, fingers trembling as she adjusted the earring that dangled from her ear. Tonight, a blind date loomed ahead, orchestrated by Chloe, her well-meaning but relentless best friend. The thought made her stomach churn, a messy mixture of excitement and dread. All the while, the shadows of expectations loomed. 32, single, and the family clock was ticking. So many well-meaning relatives pressured her about finding a husband. Settling down, was she truly destined for this path? The echoes of her past, especially that of her talented artist sister, haunted her. That pain weighed heavy on her heart, a reminder of the artistic dreams suffocated by corporate ambition. As she arrived at the upscale restaurant, a world of glimmering chandeliers and tailored suits welcomed her. The ambience felt suffocating. She stood out in her vibrant, bohemian dress, a stark contrast against the polished decor and the stream of well-dressed professionals. Her heart raced not out of excitement, but out of sheer apprehension. Could she relate to a CEO in a setting so foreign to her? Was this date just another reminder of society's unyielding expectations? When Jason walked in, he exuded confidence, a disarming smile gracing his face. He was everything she had imagined in a corporate leader, polished, charismatic. Yet something within him hinted at deeper struggles that mirrored her own insecurities. They began their conversation over shared plates, laughter trailing awkwardly behind each question, as if they were searching for common ground in shifting sand. "What do you do for fun?" he asked with genuine interest. "Art mostly. I teach kids," she replied, some pride bubbling inside her. Yet dread clawed at her consciousness, pulling her back to the painful memories of her sister, an artist whose worth had been overlooked while working for a company Jason guided. Her courage trembled under those thoughts. How could she find joy in this connection when the specter of betrayal loomed? Before she could respond further, Jason began discussing his company's art initiatives, the ethos behind them. Sarah felt the warmth of his sincerity fogging her resolve. Here was a man who appreciated beauty and art, yet her heart battled with another narrative, one where her sister's soul had been damaged by Jason's corporate decisions. Could she allow herself to really enjoy this? Was her personal happiness worth more than loyalty to her family? In moments of laughter, she sensed the fracture growing deeper. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The conversation shifted, a pattern of unraveling intimacy weaving through their exchanges. Laughter fell like soft rain, but under the surface, Sarah grappled with growing tension. She felt the weight of her sister's dreams suffocating her emerging hopes, an anchor pulling her deeper under. With every shared compliment, Jason softened her defenses, yet every confirmation of their chemistry laid her moral dilemma heavier against her heart. As they approached the end of dinner, the table felt like a battleground. Between shared hopes and unspoken fears, their eyes locked, the tension electric. Would she let her heart soar in the face of potential betrayal? Sarah was poised on a tipping point. The night closed in around them, hearts racing against a backdrop of silence that begged for resolution. But the shadows remained unresolved, their fates hanging precariously, transformed yet still, divided by an unyielding past. Sarah's heart raced as she searched for her next words, the tension at the table nearly palpable. The laughter that had initially felt liberating now clenched around her throat like a vice. This date held everything she had sought to avoid, a confrontation with her own choices. She had always prided herself on her authenticity, yet here she was, teetering on the brink of an emotional precipice. Could she find joy in deepening their connection when she knew the risk involved? "Jason," she began, her voice quavering slightly, "can we talk about what you understand about art?" The question seemed simple, yet it carried the weight of a severe inner confrontation. Could she risk exposing her vulnerabilities, possibly drawing a line between their worlds? His brow furrowed slightly, inviting her to reveal more. I think art is a bridge. It connects people on a level that's raw and pure, he responded, his earnestness almost disarming. It has the power to inspire change. That's why our initiative started bringing art back into the corporate landscape. In that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope amidst her turmoil. If he genuinely believed in art's ability to transform lives, could he not also understand the deep wounds left by the corporate world? The thought made her pulse quicken, igniting a spark she thought might remain extinguished. What about the artists? She probed, feeling an inner force pushing her now. What about those who feel exploited in that landscape? My sister worked under the shadows of executives, and her dreams crumbled because the company saw her as a cog rather than a creator. How do you balance inspiration with that reality? Jason's expression shifted to one of contemplation, and he leaned in, the atmosphere around them transforming from that of mere dinner companions to two souls raw and exposed. I never knew, he confessed softly, his gaze steady, and I wouldn't want to dismiss the sacrifices of anyone who only sought to create. I do want to be part of the change. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? A chance to confront not just him, but herself as well? Sarah took a heavy breath and stood at the precipice, peering into not only Jason's intentions but her own. Could she confront the unresolved pain of her sister's sacrifice, or was she going to allow her fears to dominate yet again? Instead of allowing bitterness to choke her ideals, she allowed her desire for growth to steal the air in her lungs. Maybe you could start by listening to those artists in deeper ways, she suggested, the words pouring forth as if a dam had finally broken. Engage with them. Include them in the conversations that shape their futures. I want to, he replied earnestly, but I need someone to help me. Someone who understands, who can guide me. Those words settled around her like live wire. An unexpected sensation swelled within a longing not just to heal on her own, but to become an agent of change, perhaps even for someone like Jason. The prospect of transformation stretched before her, daunting yet enticing. Perhaps I can help, she said, surprising even herself with the audacity of her proposal. The thought of stepping into a mentor role stirred a dormant fire inside her, igniting the possibility of reclaiming the narrative that had long been overshadowed by her sister's story. As they exchanged ideas, the chemistry between them shifted from tension to a creative spark that buzzed in the air. Sarah felt the contours of her self-identity slowly morph into something unfamiliar yet powerful. She was no longer just Sarah the artist's sister burdened by grief. She was, perhaps, about to become an artist of her own life. But that decision weighed heavily on her heart, leaving behind an echo she could not ignore. How far was she willing to venture into this unexpected collaboration? Would she permit herself to fully trust Jason, knowing the precarious balance between ambition and integrity? Suddenly the restaurant dimmed around them, the glow of the chandeliers dimming into a muted hue, mirroring the fading comfort of familiarity. With every passing moment, the stakes rose, edging her closer to a resolution unknown. The silence thickened, poised between them, as bold decisions loomed just beyond the horizon of their budding relationship. What awaited them on the other side of this exploration? It was a question that lingered in the air, waiting patiently for both of them to summon the courage to confront it. The tension lingered in the air even after their conversation pivoted towards lighter topics. Sarah felt an undercurrent of anticipation propelling her thoughts, each word exchanged with Jason threading together a tapestry of fluctuating emotions. Yet the underlying question remained. Could she truly commit to this partnership, or would it ultimately show fractures in her own identity? As dessert arrived, she allowed herself to savor the moment, taking in the rich, chocolate layers atop her plate. Each bite mirrored her growing complexity, sweet tinged with bittersweet memories of her sister. In a way, the dessert epitomized the choices ahead, the delightful and decadent possibility of change dotted with the shadow of fear looming behind her. The cafe began filling with an array of chattering voices, the clinking of cutlery, and the laughter of couples sharing their own stories. It felt vibrant, yet isolating. Sarah suddenly became acutely aware of how her aspirations had always been eclipsed by her past. She had clung to the identity of the grieving sister for so long that the mere thought of stepping into a new role left her feeling vulnerable. "Are you okay?" Jason asked, his gaze steady, cutting through the swirling chaos around them. His inquiry snapped her back to the present, reminding her of everything she had just opened up about. She hesitated, contemplating her response. Should she admit the depth of her uncertainty, or protect herself by feigning confidence, self-assuredness she ached to embody? The weight of her choices pressed down on her, but she was momentarily struck by the boldness she just expressed. I'm grappling with breaking away from this shadow that looms over me, she confessed, her voice barely breaking through the bustle of the cafe. Those words had escaped before she could hold them back, the truth spilling forth like a stream unburdened by rocks. Jason nodded, thoughtful. It sounds like you want to be more than just an echo of someone else's dreams. Their eyes locked, and a bolt of understanding passed between them. It felt raw yet liberating. She wasn't alone in her struggle to redefine success or importance. I do want to be seen, Sarah said, her voice gaining strength, to create my narrative and find my own path forward. Intrigued admiration flickered in Jason's gaze, driving her resolve to stand firm. Was she ready to challenge the narratives that shaped her existence? What if she were to take on this role as a mentor, guiding others like Jason, who seemed genuinely eager to learn? Would doing so allow her to carve out her identity anew, repurposing old pain into passion and purpose? This mentorship would not only impact Jason, it could very well catalyze her own growth. However, the scars of her sister's loss would always be there, shadowing her progress. She could either choose to be hindered by it or transform that pain into a platform for understanding and connection. A sudden voice interrupted her cascade of thoughts, a stranger at a nearby table loudly expressing thoughts about the rent market. The tension that had once enveloped her began to dissipate, replaced by a burst of exhilaration and urgency. Her decision felt essential. Let us do this, she stated, meeting Jason's questioning gaze. I'll help you navigate the complexities of working with artists, but in return, I want your honesty. About corporate structures, about navigating your world, no holds barred. Absolutely, he affirmed, and there was a flicker of excitement in his eyes. We'll dismantle those barriers together. A current of determination surged through Sarah as their pact solidified. This wasn't merely a transactional partnership. It was a potential transformation, an intersection of their journeys that held promise for both. Yet amidst the thrill, a knot of apprehension formed in her gut. Was this budding collaboration merely a distraction from facing her unresolved grief, or was it indeed the pathway to confronting it? As they finished their desserts, discussing specifics, Sarah couldn't shake the sensation that an inevitable confrontation awaited her. Would she emerge stronger, or risk what little peace she had by exposing herself further? In the shared laughter and burgeoning ideas, the shadow of her sister loomed, a specter that would not release its hold so easily. Each step would require courage, a resurfacing of buried emotions, and a confrontation with everything she had long avoided. The promise of their collaboration lit a fire within her, yet she felt the cold hand of fear gripping her heart. How much she could venture into this unknown territory remained uncertain, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the past demanded its reckoning. What lies on the horizon of her past, ready to meet her newfound ambitions? As the cafe began to close for the night, Sarah looked to Jason, feeling the stirring winds of change, a blend of hope and uncertainty rustling just beneath the surface. Early the next morning, Sarah awoke with the faint echoes of her recent conversation with Jason still reverberating in her mind. Determined to shed the layers of doubt that had so long enveloped her, she stood in front of her wardrobe, contemplating what to wear for their meeting later that day. Every piece of clothing felt like a reflection of her past, and she searched for something that spoke to the new identity she was striving to form. After considerable deliberation, she settled on a sleek navy blouse that clung to her curves without overshadowing the person she aimed to be. The choice felt deliberate, a symbolic yet tangible step toward asserting her presence in a world where she'd been content to linger in the shadows. As she reviewed her image in the mirror, the resolve building in her was undeniable. The cafe was bustling again when she arrived, its morning energy captivating. She spotted Jason already seated at their usual table, his face animated as he gestured toward his laptop. The sight of him ignited a mix of apprehension and excitement within her. Today wasn't just about mentorship, she was confronting the gravity of her decision. Morning, he greeted, his enthusiasm infectious. Morning, she replied, a smile breaking through her earlier trepidation. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself for the conversation ahead. Let us map this out, Jason suggested, pulling his laptop closer. I've been sketching some ideas on how we can engage with artists while navigating the corporate landscape. We need to establish a bridge between the two worlds. Exactly, she agreed, the discussion feeling like an awakening. We should focus on promoting authentic creativity while understanding the commercial framework that surrounds it. I believe they can coexist without drowning one another out. They delved deep into brainstorming strategies, and amid the flow of ideas, something clicked in Sarah. Each concept they discussed germinated possibilities of connection, not just for the artists, but for her as well. Yet, as excitement swelled within her, a small voice in the back of her mind cautioned her. Could this progress also lead to unraveling the grief she had tightly grasped? As they dissected more intricate details, Sarah's thoughts began spiraling. Would revealing her entrepreneurial ambitions merely expose her vulnerabilities, or would it forge a path through her pain, a bridge to the person she wished to become? Have you thought of how you want to channel experiences from your past into this? Jason asked, his tone shifting to one of genuine curiosity. Your journey could be really impactful. A pause enveloped them as her initial instincts to shut down surged within her. But instead of shying away, she felt the weight of his inquiry pressing upon her, urging her to confront. I've been afraid that sharing too much will pull me back, she articulated thoughtfully. Yet, maybe that's where the potential lies. Perhaps getting raw and personal could foster real connection. There it was, the revelation cascading down upon her, like warm sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. Sarah realized that leaning into her grief could unveil an authenticity in her approach, one that could resonate more powerfully with others than a polished facade. Turning her past into a poignant narrative could inspire and guide. Jason nodded, taking in her words. That's your strength, Sarah. It's not weakness, but a map to understanding others who feel lost and burdened. Channeling your experiences can provide clarity. As they wrapped up their discussion, Sarah's chest swelled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She was stepping into a territory rife with both opportunity and potential heartache. The notion of sharing her struggles felt daunting, but with each passing moment, the power of vulnerability hinted at something exhilarating beneath the layers of fear. As they left the cafe, she caught sight of herself in the glass window. The face smiling back held a glimmer that had been dormant for far too long, a flicker of courage. What awaited her as she peeled back the layers of her past in this mentorship? Stepping into the unknown marked not simply a professional evolution, but an emerging personal awakening that was both thrilling and terrifying. Later that day, Sarah received a text from Jason indicating he had set up a meeting with a well-regarded artist known for their raw and transformative works. The prospect of meeting this artist ignited a spark of anxiety in her gut. Was she truly ready to expose her vulnerabilities in such a public forum? The moment of truth was approaching, and with it, the opportunity to confront the past she had been trying to navigate with clarity and purpose. As she prepared for this impending engagement, she understood she stood not just on the precipice of career advancement, but of a deeper, more profound personal metamorphosis. Would she seize the chance to redefine herself, or would the shadows of her history take hold once more? The day of the meeting arrived, drenched in a tension that crackled in the air. Sarah paced her small apartment, rehearsing the conversation she envisioned having with the artist. Her nerves twisted through her. Every step felt heavy under the weight of expectation. She glanced at the clock and forced herself to stop. This wasn't just about the artist, it was about her. The meeting could serve as a turning point, a moment to tether her past to her present with honesty. Yet, the thought of revealing her story made her heart race wildly. Vulnerability was a double-edged sword, capable of both exposing her deep wounds and creating connections that felt insurmountable. As she arrived at the designated gallery, the vibrant art around her was a sharp contrast to the ambiguity clouding her thoughts. Colors exploded across canvases, each piece telling a distinct stories that seemed worlds away from her own. She swallowed hard. aiming to absorb the confidence radiating from the art, reminding herself that she was here to create her narrative. Jason greeted her with palpable enthusiasm that was contagious. "Are you ready for this?" "You'll do great," he assured her, his eyes shining with encouragement. She nodded, albeit hesitantly, as they made their way toward the artist's workspace, a secluded area in the gallery where splashes of paint mingled with the scent of turpentine. The artist, Mia, was a whirlwind of creativity, her presence commanding yet warm. She welcomed them with an inviting smile that eased some of Sarah's tension. "Welcome. I'm excited to chat," Mia declared, her artistic aura vibrant, both intimidating and inspiring. As they settled into conversation, Mia began sharing her journey stories of struggle that resonated deeply with Sarah's own insecurities. Each word unspooled threads of empathy between them. Mia talked about the importance of channeling one's vulnerabilities into their work, the potential found within the unguarded moments, and how true connection with one's audience often came from shared pain. "So, how did you come to embrace those experiences in your art?" Sarah found herself asking, the question tumbling out with unexpected ease. Mia paused, her gaze contemplative. "It wasn't easy. I used to hide behind my art, thinking if I shielded my truth, I'd deprotect myself. But when I finally let go, I discovered my voice had always been there, waiting to be expressed." A jolt of recognition struck Sarah. This was precisely what Jason had suggested. Moments ago, that revelation had felt like an abstract theory. Now, it was a living, breathing truth before her. She realized her narrative, steeped in sorrow, had the power to carve pathways for others. Could vulnerability indeed be an asset instead of a weakness? "What if I want to share my story?" she asked, her heartbeat quickening at the thought of breaking through the protective barriers she had long exhibited. "What if I wanted to put myself out there to connect with others?" Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's where the magic happens. Don't filter your truth. It can spark inspiration. You'll find understanding in others' experiences too." As the conversation continued, they delved into the transformative influence art could have over an audience. Every shared vulnerability became a brushstroke of connection. Sarah felt a surge of confidence swell inside her. Each affirmation, each encouraging nod from Mia, dispelled the remnants of doubt that had plagued her. But as the meeting wound down, a familiar apprehension began to creep back in a whisper that reminded her of the sheer magnitude of what she was contemplating. Was she truly prepared to take on this commitment to be seen and heard? The anxious excitement that had fueled her earlier was now laced with a paralyzing fear. Leaving the gallery, she sensed Jason's anticipation, the momentum from the meeting palpable in the air. "Ready to reflect on what you learned?" he asked, his tone buoyant. "Definitely," she responded, but doubts swirled in her mind like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind. What awaited her in the next steps felt like standing at the edge of a precipice. The prospect of opening up deeply to the world, to those who might connect, to those who might judge, loomed ominously ahead. As she walked side by side with Jason, his words echoed, intermingling with her thoughts. Would she embrace this chance to share and perhaps, in doing so, transform not just her professional life, but also confront the specter of her past head-on? The edge was close, and the next move marked a decision that could skirt the edge of her comfort zone or thrust her into the illuminating light of reconnection. What would she choose? In that moment between excitement and dread, a question crystallized in her mind. Was she prepared to unveil herself, to capture others with her authenticity, or would she retreat into the familiar shadows once more? The drive home felt surreal, as if the world outside her window was moving at a different speed. Jason's animated chatter faded into a dull background hum, while Sarah wrestled with her thoughts. Each moment in that gallery replayed in vivid flashes Mia's exuberance, the paint-splattered walls, and the palpable energy of honesty woven throughout their conversation. Yet beneath the excitement, doubts thrashed within her. Was she genuinely ready to share her story, the one she had guarded so fiercely for years? Standing before an audience large or small, could she truly expose the raw truths that made her vulnerable? Those doubts rushed back, threats of inadequacy swirling like dark clouds. They had intimidated her into silence for so long, leading her to believe that her experiences were unworthy of the light. But Mia's words echoed deep within her. Your truth can spark inspiration. The possibility had glimmered briefly, igniting a flicker of hope amidst her fear. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah finally pulled into her driveway. She fumbled with her keys, the familiar routine grounding her amid the tumultuous waves crashing in her mind. Once inside, she dropped her bag unceremoniously and paced her living room, the walls closing in with every step. How could she channel that inspiration Mia spoke of? The thought twisted into a plan, every hesitance sharpening into determination. Sarah grabbed her laptop and started typing, a flurry of thoughts pouring onto the page. She resisted the urge to over-edit, to filter her ideas through the anxieties bobbing just beneath the surface. With each letter formed, she committed to an unfamiliar path. But her mind wasn't entirely cooperative. Memories surged unannounced: the betrayal, the silence, the gnawing grief that had felt eternal. Each recollection threatened to engulf her, allowing doubt to rise yet again. She paused and inhaled deeply, reminding herself of the power of articulation. Instead of hiding behind these thoughts, what if she allowed them to illuminate her narrative? As dawn approached and sunlight spilled through her window, an epiphany crystallized in her mind. Her past, woven tumultuously into her story, had shaped her resilience. This very vulnerability was gold dust, not simply an encumbrance. If she could reframe it as part of her strength, she could not only change her own trajectory, but potentially impact others caught in similar storms. Still, the whisper of trepidation remained, tightening its grip over her heart as daylight brightened the room like an audience primed for her first performance. She realized she had to confront not just her external fears, but the internal ones that had lingered too long as well. After hours of writing, Sarah finally closed her laptop. She gazed at the screen, now filled with raw, unfinished thoughts, and recognized the emotional heaviness of the moment. She had gone from reminiscing alone in her apartment to sharing pieces of herself that could resonate with anyone willing to listen. Yet the prospect of unveiling her narrative in public, where judgment loomed large, paralyzed her with uncertainty. With a newfound resolve, she scheduled a meeting with Jason. "Let us discuss how this can evolve," she typed, conviction filling her fingertips. This was not simply about her. It was about finding a voice that could resonate beyond her solitary experience. But with that decision came the inevitable challenge: to share the draft with Jason and take the next step into the world she feared yet craved. What if he found her unworthy? What if her words failed to spark anything? The moment urged her to settle into discomfort, to embrace the very unfiltered truth she admired in Mia. As the clock ticked towards their meeting, Sarah's stomach twisted in knots. She was on the verge of catharsis, yet weighed down by thoughts of rejection lurking in the dark spaces of her mind. The moment to transform her reality was approaching. The question was no longer whether she wanted to share her story, but how far she was willing to push herself. Against the tide of fear, was she ready for the plunge? The answer loomed ahead, concealed behind a commitment that felt as daunting as it was promising. Would she take the leap, or would she turn back at this critical juncture, caught between the past and an uncertain future? The morning sun filtered softly through the window, casting gentle patterns across the living room floor. Sarah sat on her couch, the weight of her draft lingering in the air like an unfinished task. She sensed the immense significance of her upcoming meeting with Jason, but also the gravity of what lay ahead. This wasn't merely a review of her writing. It was stepping into a new realm, an arena where vulnerability met prospect. She gathered her thoughts, replaying what she wanted to convey. It was about more than just sharing her past. It was about crafting a narrative that could resonate with others, perhaps even galvanizing them to confront their own demons. As she prepared her notes, an unsettling wave of doubt swept over her. Was she talented enough? Did her experiences reflect a struggle worth sharing? Each question felt like an obstacle, a barricade set against her ambition. The clock neared the hour of her meeting. Sarah stood before the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. The woman who stared back seemed both familiar and foreign, a blend of anxiety and determination. She smoothed her hair, straightened her posture, and tried to confront that wavering voice urging her to back down. Was it possible that she was envisioning failure rather than possibility? When Jason arrived, he greeted her with a warm smile. bringing a wave of reassurance that cut through the tension that lingered in her stomach. They settled onto the couch, the weight of anticipation hanging palpably in the room. "Let us dive in," Jason prompted, his tone igniting a spark of courage within her. She took a breath and opened her laptop, revealing the words that had poured from her heart and mind. As she read, she felt herself disconnect from the anxieties that had plagued her. Her narrative unfolded with clarity and emotion, her experiences no longer shadowy secrets, but vivid brushstrokes on a canvas. She watched Jason's reactions, his nods, his focused gaze looming larger than her self-doubts. Perhaps this was merely the beginning of exposure, a step toward liberation. When she finished, silence enveloped the room, and she wondered if something had inched forward while she had spoken. Jason took a moment, then leaned forward, placing his hands on his knees. "Wow, Sarah, this is powerful. Your honesty is palpable." His words ignited a fire within her. The relief of acceptance washed over her, but so did the clarity of her next goal. They discussed potential angles, how to weave her tale into a framework of resilience and hope. Jason's feedback was constructive but gentle, allowing her to feel supported rather than critiqued. Slowly, she began to see her story not only as a testament to her struggle, but also as an instrument for connection. As their conversation deepened, Sarah's confidence began to mount. She fleshed out areas needing work, asking questions, and engaging fully in the process. Emerging ideas transformed into plans, and she realized that crafting her narrative wasn't just about exposing her past. It was about envisioning a future tied to service and authenticity. Yet, with every breakthrough came the reminder of the threshold before her. She was still grappling with the concept of presenting her story publicly, giving it a life beyond these walls. What would it mean to open up on such a scale? Would she be able to endure the scrutiny of others, to stand on that stage of vulnerability? As they wrapped up the meeting, Jason's final remark echoed in her mind. "Remember, narratives resonate best when they are sincere. Continue developing your voice. The world is ready for it." That notion intertwined with the doubts that clung to her heart, sparking another wave of urgency to transcend the fear that had held her captive for so long. Sarah, sensing the shifting tide, made a decision in that moment. She would face this challenge head-on. It was time to prioritize not merely her fears, but the potential impact her words could have. The prospect of helping others through her truth became a guiding light through the fog of uncertainty. As she thanked Jason and watched him leave, she felt exhilarated and terrified all at once. Would she truly share her voice with an audience? The question rippled through her, a constant whisper daring her to take that leap. There was no turning back. Now it was about strategy, execution, and confronting the lingering shadows within. And then came another unsettling realization. She needed to polish her draft, develop a presentation, perhaps even consider the art of public speaking. With each thought, the emotional stakes rose higher. At that moment, Sarah resolved that she couldn't just retreat into familiar shadows. She pictured an audience, not as adversaries, but as listeners ready to embrace the untold stories she carried. It was time to confront not just her fears, but the very essence of her capabilities. As she prepared to dive back into her writing, the stakes felt heavier than ever. What would emerge from this next phase of preparation? Would she seize the momentum and transform her story into empowerment, or would her fears seize her at the final hour? The quiet settled around Sarah like a heavy blanket as the door clicked shut behind Jason. She felt a peculiar mix of adrenaline and doubt swirling within her, the outcome of their meeting a charge of energy, sparking a transformation she scarcely understood. This was no longer just a completion of a draft. It demanded more of her, an excavation of her fears and unexpressed ambitions. She hurriedly jotted down notes, intent on preserving every grain of inspiration from their discussion. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, adrenaline pushing the words into existence. Each sentence emerged not merely as an account, but as a chance to illuminate paths she had been too fearful to tread. Clara's voice whispered in her mind. She had always emphasized that vulnerability could be a powerful tool, a bridge to others. The thought ignited something deeper within Sarah. What if her journey of transformation could become a catalyst for someone else's healing? As she penned her thoughts, she stumbled upon passages she had once deemed too personal or embarrassing to share. No longer were they simply reflections of her past. They had morphed into critical elements of her narrative, interwoven with lessons and insights. It felt like stitching together a quilt made from the fabric of her experience, each piece vital to the whole. Suddenly, a thought flickered, a fear of inadequacy that loomed like a specter. What if her words faltered in front of an audience? She paused, wrestling with the specter of rejection. What if the audience was uninterested or, worse, judgmental? The anxiety choked her. Every word she had typed felt inadequate. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah reminded herself that discomfort was part of this journey. She sought refuge in reflection. Who would she be if she allowed that fear to fester in silence? Each question was a step deeper into her self-exploration. This process was bigger than her. It was about empowerment, connection, and helping others see their stories laid bare. There was no denying the weight of her decision to share, nor could she ignore the irony that it inspired her most profound realizations. With every keystroke, she grappled with her shadows, laying a groundwork for her future. She envisioned herself before an audience not as an individual exposed, but as a figure standing tall, armed with clarity and purpose, ready to challenge the silence that often shackled vulnerability. Finally, she closed her laptop and shifted her focus to developing aspects of her presentation. Visuals, cues, the art of storytelling. The nagging voice that had previously haunted her faded, replaced by an emerging confidence. Perhaps she could find mentors, take workshops, engage with experts who had once stood where she now stood. Sarah's resolve crystallized into a plan. She would approach public speaking not as a daunting task, but as an opportunity for growth. Flipping through her notes, she began sketching out ideas for an outline. The act of organizing her visions solidified them, transforming abstract thoughts into concrete actions. The dawn of this new chapter carried an invitation. Each step toward a prepared presentation was a victory against doubt. Hours passed, and though fatigue settled like dusk in the corners of her mind, Sarah didn't waver. She worked late into the night, each phrase amplifying an evolving message of resilience and strength. The culmination of this effort ignited a deeper purpose within her, a dedication to be a beacon for those who felt unheard. Yet, as she prepared to wrap up her marathon session, the tick of the clock reminded her that there was little time to waste. Reality soon strode into her thoughts, demanding a frank confrontation with a question she had not yet fully confronted. How would she harness this newfound energy and ensure her voice resonated beyond just her experience? As an unsettling realization crept in, she pondered the logistics of engagement: where to speak, who would listen, how to inspire. The next phase of her journey beckoned, intertwining her ambition and vulnerability in a web of uncertainty. What awaited her as she prepared to take this leap? Would she discover the key to delivering her story's impact, or would the intricate tapestry of her fear strangle the growth she sought? The sun rose over the skyline, casting a warm glow into Sarah's workspace, yet she felt chilled by a new awareness and urgency to act on the momentum building within her. As the morning light illuminated her notes, she realized she was at a critical juncture, one where indecision and perfectionism threatened to drown her ambitions in a familiar sea of self-doubt. Sarah's thoughts raced as she adjusted her outline, tightening concepts and weaving deeper anecdotes throughout. What mattered most was connection. She wanted her audience to feel every pulse of her journey, to find pieces of themselves reflected in her words. The shadows of insecurity lingered, but she used them as fuel. Every hesitation was a reminder of what she stood to gain. As she stood to stretch, the rhythmic hum of city life reached her ears. People were moving, decision-makers were planning, and here she was, contemplating her place in the mix. Did she belong? Would her story weave smartly into the fabric of others? The urgency grew, pushing her away from comfort and into the realm of action. She grabbed her phone and began searching for upcoming opportunities to share her narrative. The prospect of a local speaking event popped into view. Her heart raced at the thought. It felt both exciting and terrifying, yet she tapped the link with trembling fingers. The page asked for a brief bio and the topic of her discussion. Would they even find value in what she had to say? The cursor blinked ominously, taunting her as she hesitated. In that brief moment, she realized that what constricted her wasn't just fear of failure, but a desire for approval from others. Could she truly risk exposing her vulnerabilities for validation? Biting her lip, she focused inward, anchoring herself in the resolve to overcome her apprehension. This isn't about seeking permission. It's about sharing with the hope it may ignite something in another. Sarah drafted her bio, allowing raw authenticity to seep into her words. A journey through vulnerability and resilience, illuminating the healing power of our stories. As she submitted the form, a sense of exhilaration bubbled beneath her skin. What had once felt like an anchor transforming into a buoy, propelling her forward. But then another wave of doubt washed over her. What if they rejected her? The fear clawed at her resolve, urging her to second-guess every decision. In a moment of defiance, she called Clara, her mentor and friend. When Clara answered, Sarah poured out her fears, voice edged with urgency. I submitted my bio for a speaking opportunity, but I'm terrified they'll say no or that my story just isn't important enough. Clara listened intently, the silence on the other end soothing yet charged. The act of sharing is powerful in itself, Sarah. You're not just telling a story, you're inviting others to find strength in your experience. That's enough. Have faith in your journey. It's valid. Empowered by Clara's affirmation, Sarah felt the tether of self-doubt loosen. She resolved to prepare thoroughly for whatever lay ahead, the possibility of rejection and glory intertwined within the same breath. Each moment now became a chance to juxtapose her past with her potential future. Later, while reviewing tips on public speaking, Sarah's phone beeped. A notification caught her eye. Your presentation has been accepted. Her heart soared, a thrilling release of pent-up emotion bursting forth. But underneath that excitement simmered a new layer of fear. She now had a stage, a real audience waiting to hear her. With the reality of her upcoming speaking engagement weighing on her, Sarah confronted another pressing question. What message did she truly want to convey? Could she distill her experiences into core themes without falling prey to her ingrained fears? The journey ahead promised challenges that could either kindle her growth or reignite her insecurities. The choice was hers. What inspiration could she weave into the fabric of her delivery so that her voice resonated with authentic power? As she stared at her notes, determined to shape her message, she sensed the convergence of passion and purpose within her grasp. Yet, the thought of revealing herself to a crowd was a tightrope walk over a precipice, and she was poised to take one step closer to this transformative leap. Would this opportunity define her connection to her own narrative or unravel the very threads she'd worked to bind? The day of the presentation arrived, and Sarah could hardly recognize herself in the mirror. After weeks of preparation, she felt a surge of resolute confidence that steadied her nerves. The woman looking back was no longer just the grieving sister defined by loss. She was an artist, a storyteller, and now ready to take her place on the stage. As she arrived at the venue, the low hum of chatter resonated around her, and a tangible energy filled the air. She made her way to the designated space, her stomach flipping in both excitement and apprehension. Every step toward the stage felt monumental. Sarah reminded herself that she was not just sharing her story for the sake of approval, but to inspire authenticity in others. Moments before her cue, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, envisioning the audience. They were not critics or foes. They were potential allies, each with their own struggles begging for connection. She centered herself in that realization, drawing strength from the idea that vulnerability was indeed a source of power. When her name was called, Sarah walked on stage, the spotlight illuminating her presence. The audience quieted, and in that silence, she felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. This was her moment to articulate what had long confined her in shadows. Taking a step forward, she shared the essence of her journey navigating grief, artistry, and the pursuit of her own identity amidst expectations. The words flowed with authenticity and conviction. Each of us carries a story, she began, voice steady, a tapestry woven with strands of sorrow and joy. I realized that sharing my own narrative, especially the shadows of my past, could hold the potential to illuminate someone else's path. As she spoke, she noticed nods and expressions of empathy in the audience. It fueled her resolve, transforming the once intimidating stage into a sanctuary for connection. She wove anecdotes from her life, not merely as tales of struggle, but as testimonials of resilience, a framework for understanding. Then came the pivotal moment. What if the very vulnerabilities we hide could be our greatest strengths? I learned that true art is forged in authenticity, where our fears intertwine with our narratives to inspire change. The response was palpable. Whispers of recognition coursed through the room. Sarah continued, detailing her collaboration with Jason, the artist who had navigated corporate art initiatives, and how mentorship had gifted her clarity. Her commitment to helping artists reclaim their stories resonated with the audience, fostering an understanding of shared struggles. In that moment, Sarah truly recognized the impact of her words. She had transcended her previous struggles, transforming them into lessons meant to uplift others. The applause that followed felt less like a judgment and more an affirmation, a celebration of shared humanity. As she exited the stage, the high of her accomplishment enveloped her like a warm embrace. She had conquered not just the stage, but her fears of being seen for who she authentically was. Confidence radiated from her, tangible proof of her growth. The days that followed sparked a flurry of conversations. Messages and notes poured in from audience members who were touched, sharing their own struggles and triumphs. The stories renewed her sense of purpose, reminding her that the act of sharing had initiated the change she had yearned to create. Sarah stepped firmly into her role as a mentor, collaborating with artists and building workshops focused on bridging the gap between personal storytelling and creative expression. She designed programs emphasizing the importance of understanding one's narrative, cultivating authenticity not just for the individual's sake, but for collective inspiration. In a short span, she began to see her impact ripple through the community of artists, where newfound confidence mingled with artistic expression. Each workshop widened her reach, empowering others to embrace their vulnerabilities and transform their lives. She stood tall as she acknowledged her journey. The woman she had become represented an unwavering dedication to growth amid pain. Completing her presentation marked a pivotal junction, one where she turned doubt into confidence, shadows into light. Now, with each passing day, the weight of her sister's legacy shifted within her. She honored her sister's dreams while forging a new path defined by her own aspirations. This collaboration with Jason became a testament to the potential found in partnerships that redefine narratives. Sarah proved to herself that true fulfillment was attainable through authenticity and collaboration. Her heart swelled with pride, not merely for sharing her story, but for seeking deeper connections and learning from others. Once stood as an anchor, fear had transformed into wings, carrying her to heights she had never imagined. As she looked ahead, excitement pulsed through her veins. She embraced the opportunities that lay on the horizon, knowing that every step forward meant new chances to inspire and uplift both herself and those around her. Now was her moment, not just to share her story, but to empower others to rewrite theirs as well. It's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show support. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.